Hello Lorcana YouTube community and all my fellow Sapphire Steel enjoyers. I'm super excited to show you guys this brand new deck I created called Anti-Meta Blue Steel. The reason why it's called Anti-Meta Blue Steel is because I honestly feel like I have an answer to everything in the meta. If you notice right now, we're not playing Scar or the Shift Jasmine package. I decided to stop trying to get out these certain, extra combos and rather just focus on a very consistent line of play, and that's just simply curving out and playing very strong characters on the board. That way, when you're on the draw, you can challenge effectively. And if we do get to wrap on turn 2, we get to play Scrooge or Miss Bianca on turn 3. And if you notice their stat lines, they have 5 strength and 5 willpower. This stat line is just amazing, being able to take out 4 willpower characters and higher. And you can also quest effectively. And if your opponents want to trade into you, they usually have to do 2 for 1. So I really do like this early pressure that these characters bring. And then after that, you're already at 5 ink, and you can start applying pressure with Namaari or anything evasive. You can go ahead and slam this new Jasmine that did come out in set 9 that we'll get into later, but she's super useful into trading into these beefy characters in the meta. And if you notice, we do have Ward and Pete in the deck, so we can actually stop a lot of these actions or targeted base removal that was really hurting my testing in previous lists. I tried to go with the Alice Ward route, but the unink just wasn't too consistent for me. And then we still get to keep our 7-drop removal with the big characters like Vince and Hades. And we're also playing Beyond the Horizon again to punish all these greedy Amethyst decks with their second star to the right and all this other greedy draw nonsense that's going on over there. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and break down the list, go character by character, and as always, I'll have timestamps down below so you can always go back and listen to these key points. If you guys do enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that sub button, leave a like, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this new list I have created. Before we get into the deck list, I do want to invite you guys to join my new Discord community called Select Few. It's not just for Sapphire Steel players, it's all things Lorcana, and even if you don't want to talk about Lorcana, we have an off-topic channel that everyone can just come in, vibe, and hang out. It's super awesome to see this community grow every day, so if you guys haven't joined already, I'm going to go ahead and leave the link down in the description below, so come on in and join this awesome community. I also want to shout out everyone who's been supporting me on Patreon, not just my paid members, but everyone on there who's just, again, showing support outside of YouTube. It definitely means a lot. For those of you who aren't aware, I do have a Patreon where you can actually have access to exclusive videos that I don't upload on YouTube. I have gameplay, podcasts, I upload deck lists on here before anywhere else. So just an awesome way to come and find exclusive content. I will have the link down in the description below. Again, I do have some free content, but most of the gameplay and other specific stuff is behind a $5 paywall. But I definitely recommend if you're trying to up your game with Sapphire Steel, because I have a lot of videos and I talk a lot. I go into depth with all my lines of plays. So if you guys want to check it out, I'm going to go ahead and leave the link down in the description below. Alright, it's time to start the deck list. We're going to go ahead and get into the 1-drop. So we're playing 6 1-drops, 3 Captain Hook, and 3 Mulan. If you notice, I'm not on Basil anymore. I decided to take him out and replace him with Captain Hook because this past weekend, this Amethyst Steel deck won the CCS 25K, and they're using a lot of 3 willpower characters like Calhoun, some illusion characters, stuff like that. And just overall with Amber Steel as well, Captain Hook has just always been solid into those decks, so you can actually trade effectively and you don't have to worry about falling behind in board presence. And as always, Captain Hook and Tipo can take out a 4 willpower character. As far as Mulan, I actually loving Mulan right now. I've been seeing a lot of other players implement Mulan in their list because it kind of acts like a pseudo develop your brain. Instead, you can actually have a body on the board rather than just activating an action. And then also we're at 13 uninkable, so having this Mulan in the early game, being able to filter out dead uninks is super huge, like duplicate dogs, duplicate Hades, stuff like that. So I think 6 1-drop characters are really nice right now. I was testing 7, but I think right now 6 is a sweet spot just because I hate how much it is to having to draw one of these characters in the mid to the late game. But if you wanted to see more 1-drop characters, I could definitely see that working out as well. Followed by the 1-drops, we're going to go to our 2-drop slot, and that's going to be the 4 copies of Tipo and 4 copies of Cell. So why no Pleakley even though we're on these 1-drop characters? Because this deck main strategy is to always ramp on turn 2, And we have Sail to be able to play a 1-drop character to not fall behind on board. But the reason why we're doing that over Pleakley is to get into the turn 3 4-drop characters with that 5/5 stat line like Miss Bianca or Scrooge McDuck. Being able to ramp on 2 and then the following turn bring out a 5/5 stat line character is very strong when you're on the draw, because you should always be able to contest the board back. And if you add a Captain Hook or Mulan and there as well, you shouldn't have too much trouble controlling the board. And then just in case you don't have Scrooge or Miss Bianca for certain matchups, like let's say for example Amber Steel or Amethyst Steel, where you don't want to give strength, we now are playing those 4 copies of Pete. Pete is just super awesome because every time I went against these steel decks, they just always had the strength. And if they strength you, you just lose on the spot right away. So now being able to contest strength with our own Pete, and then we also get to curve out with the 1, 2, 3 and the following turn have another character. Now our strengths with the Raging Fire can swing for 4. So I think Pete is just a very nice inclusion into the deck. And if you're not going to go Pete, again, you have the Scrooge and the Miss Bianca. Scrooge having that 5/5 stat line and then questing for 2 is so good. And what I've also noticed too on the draw is we get to quest more aggressively or challenge more effectively. Our opponents usually have to 2-for-1 trade into these bodies, and that's a huge tempo swing. The reason why I'm on 3 Scrooge and 4 Bianca is because I had to make space for the uninkables. And although I do like Scrooge over Bianca because Bianca has a condition where if you have an ally character on board, then you pay 2 less to bring her out. So that means you can go Tipo on 2, and the following turn you can play Miss Bianca because you have 4 ink. But Scrooge doesn't have a condition, right? If you have 4 ink, you can play Scrooge. So in that sense, I do like Scrooge, but I just had to find the uninkable space somewhere, and it just made sense cutting 1 Scrooge for the Bianca. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have this 5/5 stat line, because even in the Blurple matchup, your opponent can't just Elsa tap your Scrooge or Bianca and then just remove it, because if they do that, well, their Elsa's gonna get traded, and their Genie or their 1-drop's gonna get traded as well. So that's 2 characters for 1. Doesn't sound like a good trade for them, and that's what I think this deck needs right now in Sapphire Steel. We need to make it to where our opponent's strategies just don't apply effectively as they used to before, compared to other builds where if we get Elsa tapped or we were trying so hard to protect ourselves from getting Elsa tapped, it just made the whole deck a little bit inconsistent. So I really do like this line of play, especially going into Blurple, because having that 5/5 stat line character, they're just not going to be able to answer it effectively. And then after the Pete, Scrooge, and the Bianca, going back, we are in the 4 copies of Doc again. So Doc just proves still to be very strong. I know a lot of people think it's awkward to be playing Doc in a deck that we have big characters, but it's not. Like Sapphire Steel just doesn't have good draw answers, so it just doesn't make sense to not play Doc. Even if we are playing big characters, like Sapphire Steel right now just doesn't have good draw. The only draw cards we have are Beyond the Horizon, Doc, and Scar, and I found that Scar was just too fragile. I still think Scar and the deck itself is really good, but I think right now I want to just try this approach of just being consistent and curving out and not having to put all my eggs in one basket. I just like how Doc is instant. You can empty out your hand, play him, and draw 2 cards. Onto our 5-drop characters, we're playing 2 copies of Aurora. I find Ward right now still to be really effective. Even if we're not protecting Scar, being able to protect all your other characters is huge. I think right now with the blue-green being on the rise, blue-green has a lot of effective removal tools that are not action-based. They're all with characters. So being able to give Ward to our guys is very nice. And then we also have Pete to counter, those removal effects. So having the Pete and the Ward is just super clutch, right? You shut off a lot of these different types of removal in the meta right now. So for Ward, it's going to be super crucial against Blurple. And then anything else that's action-based, well, you do have the Pete. And Blue-Green, aka Emerald Sapphire, is on the rise. It did very well this past weekend, and I do know a lot of Sapphire Steel players were saying they have issues with it. So now that we're back on 4P, we have Ward in there, and then we have these big characters that can challenge their own big stat line characters. It's not really that big of a bad matchup anymore, honestly. I think if anything, we're favored because we are on the Petes, and their lines of play are very predictable, because now we're also curving out to being able to sing strength of the Raging Fire. So Ward and Pete is Sapphire Steel's biggest defense right now, and we need to take advantage of it. 3 copies of the new Jasmine from set 9. So her stat line is 3 strength with 7 willpower, and she quests for 2, and on your turn she gains evasive. But her second effect is where she really shines. Her second effect says you can discard a card and give her challenger +3. That's not once per turn, so potentially you can discard 2 cards and swing for 9, but for the most part 6 should be enough. she's able to answer evasive characters very effectively. And since we're playing a lot of different types of uninkables, or there's a lot of situations where we draw double dock and it's not really anything we can do with them, well, we have the Mulan, the Jasmine, Namaari cards that can actually discard these uninkables. And it's actually good that we're discarding them because we're getting an effect off. Jasmine being able to swing for 6 on evasive characters, she can one-shot genies, Elsas, and she can even potentially help you take out TikTok, that new crocodile evasive card that all these Amethyst builds are running. And then she's also very strong in the blue-green matchup again to knock out opposing Clarabelles or strong willpower characters like that. So we're just trying to put out a lot of strong characters on the board so we don't have to worry about not being able to trade and falling behind on lore. So she's just really nice to be able to answer evasives effectively. I got tired of seeing like top decking the 2-drop Smee or the 3-drop Genie, those vanilla evasive characters. Like, I just hated it. Like, why are we playing such a weak characters? And I understand when you're curving out in some decks, that's where weak characters shine. But for Sapphire and Steel right now, that's not what this deck is supposed to be doing. At least I don't think so. I think right now our key is to ramp and get big guys out as fast as possible. And her stat line is just really nice to be able to trade anything into the board. And her and Robin Hood are going to be our evasive answers as far as challenging, because I felt like, why am I being forced to answer these evasive characters? Why not just play my own pseudo evasive characters, aka a card like Scrooge, where it's a 5/5 stat line and quest for 2. So if you want to stop me from questing, you have to trade into me. I want to play more on the offense rather than defense, and a card like Jasmine does both. So she's super nice again to be answer evasive characters. If you're having issue with the evasive characters, you can always add in maybe like some extra copies of Mr. Smee or more Jasmine, stuff like that. But I think right now, setting up strengths to answer like an evasive character, having the Jasmine, the Robin Hood, and then always the Hades and Vince, that should be enough. Followed by Jasmine, we're back on Namaari. 4 copies of Namaari. I had taken her out in my Scarlets just because I felt like she was weak into Blurple. Just because every time you got her out on curve, if you went like Tipo and a 1-drop, you just didn't have anything in your discard. But now, instead of Namaari into that matchup, we can go, for example, like Jasmine. So Namaari comes back in just because against everything else, all these other steel decks, being able again to take out 4 willpower characters is what this deck needs to do. I want all my guys to be able to do it, at least all my boss monsters, so anything past turn 2 should be able to take out a 4 willpower character. If not, you can always add in Captain Hook with a Pete or an Aurora, for example, to take that out. But for the most part, everything after that can effectively take out these strong willpower characters. And then without the Scar, Namaari also acts like a pseudo draw engine, so we can always discard an uninkable, a duplicate dog, something like that, and keep finding our pieces, and your opponent just has to answer her. But again, her second effect, being able to have X amount of attack based on the amount of cards in your discard, your opponents are always going to try to 2-for-1 her. So we have Scrooge, Bianca, Namaari, Jasmine, these cards that are all 2-for-1ing, and that's going to be the tempo advantage that we need. Onto the 6-drop characters, we're playing 2 copies of Robin Hood. I actually had Robin Hood in my earlier list, but slowly fell out just because I felt like he didn't do that much compared to other cards. But now just seeing evasives just literally everywhere, and then people playing Dumbo now and even Amethyst Steel decks, Robin Hood came back into the deck. I also think it is very important to notice that 4/4 stat line, and I just got tired of having again these weak small vanilla evasive characters. At least Robin Hood can also draw you a card if your opponent has more cards than you, which usually they do because we're discarding and emptying out our hand. So that second effect, being able to draw a card, is very nice. And then him just being able to one-shot a Genie, a Dumbo without needing a boost, I think is very strong. Followed by Robin Hood, we're playing 4 copies of Miss Bianca. Miss Bianca costs 6 ink, but if you have an ally character on the board, you reduce her cost by 2. So she makes Tipo shine even more, right? Now you're incentivized to be playing this weak character, but on your turn 3, you can actually get out this 5/5 stat line, which is going to be perfect to counter the board when you're on the draw. And if you're on the play, you're able to, start questing from there. What's a really nice broken combo with Bianca and Tipo is on your turn 4, you can actually sing Beyond the Horizon. Beyond the Horizon is a sing together for 7, so on your turn 4, you can already ink, play out your 5-drop, and then go ahead and sing and refill your hand. And if you're going against Amethyst decks, you can go ahead and punish them, empty out their hand, and make them draw a whole new 3. This strategy is super good, being able to do kind of like an early dock, right? The dock and the Beyond the Horizon can be played on turn 4, and turn 5. So just a super nice way to keep yourself in the game. So Bianca and Tipo can sing it, or even like going Hook, Tipo, and Scrooge, something like that. You're also able to get off Beyond the Horizon on the play when you're on turn 4. Onto our last 6 drop, we're on 2 copies of Tinkerbell. So I decided to drop 2 copies of Tinkerbell just because I found her not useless in the Blurple matchup, but just didn't do enough, right? That one ping is very strong to be able to combo it off with Vince or your strengths, but I found that I was still having issues with the basic characters. So I think being able to cut that in half, right? Now you have 2 Tinkerbells, 2 Robin Hoods, you have two different lines of play that you can approach when you're going to your 5th ink, and depending on the matchup, either of these characters should help you in whatever, again, that matchup that you're playing against. Tinkerbell is just still too good not to play. She is very good against these aggro decks, being able to slam her down and kind of freeze the board. And then against the evasive decks, she just felt really weak. So having this 2-2 split, I think, is honestly the way to go. Onto our 7 drop removals. We're still playing the 4 copies of Hades, 4 copies of Vince. Hades just the best removal tool in the game for Sapphire Steel, and then Vince acting like a pseudo smash. It's just amazing. Once you get to the mid to the late game, for example, and against these evasive decks, when they finally start dropping their Dumbos, having that Vince shutting down that Dumbo is usually going to be checkmate for the most part. And then that 3 stat line, that 3 quest stat line is super nice that he has. Being able to only swing for 2 is really bad, but I mean, for the most part, you're just always questing with him, right? And then Hades, again, best removal card in the game. And then both these cards can actually sing Beyond the Horizon by themselves. So that's just super nice, having this 7 drop character now that can also draw us cards, which they weren't able to do before. Onto our actions. I did mention Cell earlier when I was talking about Tipo. Just to recap, Cell, even though we are playing 13 uninks, having the Mulan, the Namaari, and the Jasmine to be able to clear uninks kind of helps unbrick that. And then you don't want to fall behind on board, so being able to play a 1-drop character after you sell is a very nice way to contest the board. We're back to playing 4 copies of Vision of the Future. This card was in my earlier list and then slowly fell off. But if you're not playing Scar where you can draw, 5 to 7 cards, a card like Vision in the Future is just broken, right? Being able to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and find the answer that you need in that moment is huge. I've done this to find Docs to keep the gas going, find Hades, find evasive cards. It's just such an amazing card in so many different scenarios that you can activate this. And it's just the best, honestly, the best top deck that you can get outside of top decking like a Doc or a Hades, for example. I think any Sapphire Shell that's a mid to late game deck should be on 4 copies of Vision of the Future. This card is just, again, I can't really explain how good this card is in these grindy matchups, because whoever gets to their answer first is going to win that face-off. 4 copies of Strength of the Raging Fire, very strong card. On my Scar list, I actually dropped this card down to 3 just because it always felt awkward having to activate it. But if you're curving out, then 4 copies of Strength is the way to go. Just being able to knock out 4 willpower characters like a Genie, for example, when you're on the draw is a very huge play, and also opposing Tianas as well. And then to finish off the list, we're playing 2 copies of Beyond the Horizon. This card makes its way back into the list. I absolutely love this card, being able to sing it with Tipo or Bianca as fast as turn 4. Or you can actually sing it by yourself with Hades or Vince. Just a very nice tempo swing that you can get. And with all these Amethyst decks now playing second star to the right, being super greedy, drawing 5 cards, you just punish them, take away all the answers in their hand, and make them have a whole new strategy. This card, absolutely love this card. This deck needs a third, or I guess you can call it the official second draw package, because Doc is being number 1, and a card like Namaari and Mulan are just like more filter cards. They still draw, but like the main draw card, second one, would be Beyond the Horizon. So any Sapphire Steel list needs to have at least 2 draw engines, whether it be Doc and Scar and Beyond the Horizon, whatever combination you want to do. But this build in particular, it's Doc and Beyond the Horizon. That's it for the deck list, guys. Just my closing thoughts. I honestly do love this new curve style approach. Not new, but rather we're kind of going back to it. I think Sapphire Steel was focusing too much on all these extra combos with the Pleakley, the Jasmine, the Scar, getting Scar off of support characters, and it kind of just made the deck a little bit wonky. I think if we just focus going straight curve, applying pressure every turn, and then now being able to put out a 5/5 stat line character on turn 3, being able to draw 3 cards on our turn 4 is just super huge. Now that we're playing Pete and Aurora, we do have these counters to all this action or chosen targeted removal. So with blue-green being on the rise, this is going to be what you need to counter that deck, because again, all their deck, like the whole strategy with that deck is to either bounce your stuff through actions or through their characters. So we shut that off completely, and then the ward is going to be clutch in the Blurple matchup. And then now Pete, you don't have to worry about getting strength when you're on the draw against these steel decks, because Pete's going to help you stall out, and then now you can set up your own strength and be on the offensive. And then the 5/5 stat line, I can't really explain much how important it is being able to apply that type of pressure super early on, and you being able to control the board is what this deck needs to do. The Namaari, Robin Hood, and Bianca are just super solid boss monsters characters that you can have depending on the matchup that you're going into. And as always, the Vince and the Hades and the Strain are only removal, so you're just always forced to play those 12 copies of those cards. If you guys enjoyed the video and you still haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that sub button, leave a like, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought of the list and my explanation, reasonings behind these cards that I picked. If you haven't joined the Discord, please go ahead and join the Discord. It's an awesome community. And if you want to see more content from me outside of YouTube, I do have that Patreon that you can sign up. All those links will be down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out. I'll see y'all next time.